I had wanted to visit the coasts of Borneo ever since reading Joseph Conrad and Agnes Keith. In 1967, I tracked down information on sailings from the copious bulletins appearing in a special section of the South China Morning Post, and I found that the Norwegian Asia Line could offer me my own cabin for a month-long voyage around the northern coast of Borneo for an all-in fare of 1,050 Hong Kong dollars, equivalent to well under 150 US. It was my chance to see for the first time the other half of that incongruous assemblage of former colonial dependencies contrived by Britain through its promulgation of Malaysia in 1963, whereby Sabah and Sarawak were tagged on to the Malay Peninsula. Our first port of call was Jesselton, now known as Kota Kinabalu, which in 1947 had replaced Sandakan as capital of British North Borneo. I took a liking to Jesselton. It put me in mind of my embryonic Malaya, as it might have appeared before World War II. Illegal Filipino migrant workers added to the multiracial blend, and the thoroughly laid-back demeanour of a population totaling less than 100,000 in all. From Jesselton we journeyed west across the southern reaches of the China Sea and safely below the equatorial typhoon belt to the island of Labuan, which in 1963 had joined Sabah and Sarawak as an appendix of Malaysia. From Labuan I jumped ship to catch a local ferry over to Brunei. My first sight of Brunei's capital, Bandar Sri Begawan, remains imperishably fixed upon my mind. As we sped in our open-decked express ferry past stilted riverine homes bordering their maze of canals in Kampong Ayer, the floodlit golden dome of the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque reared up against a twilight sky like an apparition from the Arabian Nights. But there was no time to linger. I had to get to the other end of the country by nightfall, my destination being Suria, more than 100 kilometers southwest of the capital. I took a taxi and sped overnight to meet up with my old colleagues from the Malay Mail many years before. From Suria I sped on next day across the Sarawak border to Miri, where a lighter returned me to my ship at anchor in the stream. Casting off, we headed down the coast to nose our way up the Batang Rajang, Malaysia's longest and busiest river. Cebu, second largest town of Sarawak after Kuching, is located some 100 kilometers upstream at the confluence of the Rajang and Igan rivers, and effectively serves as main portal to the Rajang's mighty waterway. From here, local speedboats provide the chief means of communication to all neighboring settlements. Cebu was a product of the timber industry, already depleting the hinterland of its resources faster than the natural regeneration could make amends. Its wealth was largely founded on its enterprising, hard-working, and exploitive Foochow community, who arrived in Sarawak from southern China during the reign of Raja Charles Brooke, as a result of which the town was frequently referred to as New Fuchu. Along our serpentine course to reach it, we occasionally glimpsed the longhouses of Ibans, half hidden in jungle undergrowth, like elderly spinsters drawing the blinds to conceal the extent to which the neighborhood was changing. We worked our way up the convoluted lower intestine of the Sarawak River the following day to draw alongside Kuching's moss-covered roofs of crumbling tile. I hastened to disembark and found the local bazaar much the same as it must have looked when it inspired in Somerset Maugham some curiously undetached thoughts, coming from a writer better known for his immersion in expatriate follies than for his susceptibility to local colour. Maugham, in a writer's notebook, records that the bazaar consists of narrow streets with arcades like those of Bologna, and each house is a shop in which you can see the ongoing Chinese pursuing the busy life of the Chinese town, working, eating, talking. On the banks of the river are the native huts, and here, living their immemorial lives, are the Malays. As you wander in the crowd, as you linger watching, you get a curious, thrilling sense of urgent life. You divine a happy, normal activity, birth and death, love and hunger. These are the affairs of man. And through that press of people passes the white man, who rules them. He is never part of the life about him. So long as the Chinese keep the peace and pay their taxes, he does not interfere with them. He is a pale stranger who moves through all this reality like a being from another planet. He is no more than a policeman. He is the eternal exile. He has no interest in the place. He is only waiting for his pension, and he knows that when he gets it, he will be unfit to live anywhere but here. In the club they often discuss where they shall live when they retire. They are bored with themselves, bored with each other. They look forward to their freedom from bondage. The rest of the month-long voyage went by in something of a blur, reading novels from the ship's small but sensibly stocked library, and keeping a journal which has not survived. Occasionally I raised my head from my deck chair to stare out at the unravelling scroll of mangrove swamp and palm tree, interrupted by an occasional strand or rocking promontory, and backed by eternal mountains as we retraced our course east along the coast until, with a towering triangle of Mount Kinabalu in the distance, we rounded the northeast extremity of Borneo and forged south down the island's eastern seaboard. We paused at Sandakan just long enough for me to go ashore and get a taste of the former capital of Sarawak.